Welcome back. Last video we did on the Camaro, we were trying to get the transmission to shift into gear. Doesn't seem like the throwout bearing is quite engaging the clutch all the way. So the transmission doesn't stop spinning, so you can't get it in gear. So I've ordered some shims for the throwout bearing, but they're not here yet. So instead of just waiting around and doing nothing, I decided we should put the Dakota Digital in this thing. I've had it sitting around for like a year and a half, and I'll be honest, I'm tired of it just kicking around in the floor, and it needs to be done. So I don't know anything about it really. I've kind of skimmed the instructions, but you know, it is what it is. We'll figure it out along the way. I'm going to tear into it, just make sure we got everything I need. I think I've got it all, and we'll just see what we can make happen. I think it'll be an awesome upgrade for this car. Well, I've kind of got it all laid out here, and have looked through some of it. I'll show you as we go, but I just wanted y'all to get a look at the gauges. I love the way these gauges look. Can't wait for them to be in the car. Also, basically none of the gauges in this car have ever worked right, ever. So it'll be nice just to be able to have a speedometer and tack and all that stuff just readily available to be seen. The CD009 does not have a speed output, so I had to get a GPS module for this. So we'll be GPS speed in this car instead of being hooked up mechanically anyway to a transmission or wheel speed sensor or anything like that. So let's get inside and see if we can't get the old speedometer out. So there's not much to taking the old cluster out. There's 8 screws, 4 across the top, and then 2 on each side on the bottom. I'm going to take all those out and just take that cover off right quick, and we'll start there. And I'm just going to pull it off and show you what's behind it. So once the cover's off, the next thing that comes out is the gauge cluster. I've actually already taken the top 2 out from previously. I've had this dash out 2 or 3 times, and I never put those back in. And then there's 2 bolts that are hiding way back in there, one on either side. They're 10 millimeters. They're little speed nuts. Take them off, then the cluster will pop out. The wires will just pop loose from the connectors in the back. But on the older cars that have a speedometer cable, which this one did, I've actually taken the speedometer cable and threw it away because it was broke. But there's a clip on the back, I'll show you once I get it out, that you push and it'll release that speedometer cable, and then you can take it all the way out. But I'm going to go ahead and take these last 2 nuts out, and I'll pop this loose, and I'll show you where that clip would be if you had it. I got her loose. Once you get it loose, you can just kind of turn it and wiggle it out of there, and it will come out without pulling the steering column, but it's just a pain. And here is the part where the speedometer cable would go, and this little tab right there, you release that and it'll release that speedometer cable. You can get to that with the dash in if you drop the steering column, but there usually is enough slack in the speedometer cable to where you can pull this out some and get your hand back there. It is tight though. So here's the plugs I was talking about. They just pull straight out of the back when you pull the cluster loose, and we'll be using the wires that are in those. I don't know if for sure we can, but I'd like to be able to mount that those computer boxes actually back there. We'll see. This car doesn't have a ton of room behind the dash, so if we can get it in there, we'll be great. If not, we'll have to figure out some way to get it over in that mess, you know, because what we need is more wires in there. So the next thing we're going to do is remove the indicator lights. They just pop right out, just like this, nothing to them. And we're going to replace them with these block-off plates. That just pulls right off, just like that. And then we'll do the other one. I'm going to clean up the glue right quick. There's a little glue here. And then we'll put those in. So I got all that cleaned up. These install, it's got like a covering. The covering goes forward. And I'm going to put a little bit of glue right here and right here. That way when I put it down, it'll stay. They don't tell you to do that, but I can't imagine it would stay if you don't. Let's pull this guy off right here. Get it ready to go. That's cool looking. Get us a piece of paper to put under there so we don't make a mess. And just, this is gel, I believe, so it shouldn't move around a whole bunch. And it shouldn't take a lot to hold that in there. And just like that, it's in. I'll just hold it for a moment. Let glue dries. Then I'll do the other side. Well, that glue I had did not stick. So I managed to get it all off and cleaned up. It stuck to my hands fine, but it wouldn't stick to this plastic. But I got a plastic welding gun. I'm just going to put this on like that. Heat this up. We'll try to weld these edges together, hopefully without making too much of an issue with that. We'll see if we can get it to stick. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't getting too bad and too hot to the point it'd melt the other side, but it seems like it's going to be just fine. This might even be better. There we go. Just melting down the little prongs that hold it in place right down into it. That'll hold it. They don't tell you to do any of this, so you know, I'm just winging it. Well, there we go. Now let's do the other side. Turns out pretty good. Oh yeah, that's good and strong. Good and strong. So the next thing we're going to install is this rocker switch. I'm going to take it out of this little housing and we're going to mount it so it's accessible but out of the way so you can't really see it. I guess you could use this if you wanted to, but I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to drill a hole right in her here and just push it through, and then we can pull the wires out right there. Should work just fine. Have a rocker switch and be easy enough to get to, but you won't actually be able to see it. So yeah, let's figure out what size it is and get a hole drilled. So we've actually already hooked up the oil sender unit, and it goes, I put it in the stock location, which is just in the back of the block. And the water temp sensor I put in this head over here. I've done that already, and those wires are actually ran in, and I ran them through a grommet. So all that's actually taken care of. We've done that in the past, so we can just jump right into the inside of the car. And just like that, we're done. No, sorry. That's not how that goes at all. So I just thought I'd test fit this with the computer box behind it. It fits on this side. It is tight, but it will go. So we'll just have to see if we can get it all in there, and then it screwed down and everything work. I think there's enough room. It's probably the best place for that box. So, but man, doesn't that look good in there? Yeah. Can't wait to have this all hooked up. I'm going to get back to it, and we'll take that apart, and we'll look into the actually wiring now. Next thing we got to conquer is we got to get a constant power, a switched power, and a ground up there. So I'm just going to make us a little wiring loom. I bought these little jumpers. They just plug right into a fuse outlet, and it gives you a second fuse. See how that one is? And then you just put a fuse in there. You got a fusible link. All of it's hooked up. It's tucked away real nice. You don't have to splice any wires. So, and then I just got an eyelet on a black wire that I've actually got, goes from black to blue, but it'll be fine. I'm going to make a little wiring loom out of all this and see if we can't get it in the car, and then we'll start hooking up like blinkers and things like that. So I wrapped those wires I had in some cloth loom. I ran them down. Of course, your application may be different, but right here's a key source for me, and in the back here is the positive source or constant source. And then I ran my ground down and just put a self-tapper in it. I did scrape off some of the paint or whatever so it'd get a good connection there. And then we can move on up here and start wiring the rest of this stuff. So the next thing we're going to do is try to figure out which wires are the turn signals for the left and right turn signal. I've got a little harness that plugs into that you'll wire in. We'll just solder those together. It plugs directly into the back of the Dakota Digital, and that'll be the left and turn signal, or left and right turn signal, if I can speak. We're just going to use just simple test light, nothing special. And once we find the wires, we'll just clip them and solder this on and do a little heat shrink, and that'll be good to go. And then we'll be on to figuring out what the rest of the wires we need out of this are. I think we found it. Let's see if we can find the other side. Or maybe I missed it. There we go. There we go. So third pin over from the left on that one, and it's the very last pin from the left on the other one over here. The pigtail for mine, there's a white with a green stripe, that's right, and a white with the black stripe, that's left. So I'm just going to go ahead and go in here and clip these and strip them and get this all hooked up, and it'll just be done. You're not going to be able to see this, so just know that white and green is to the right turn signal and white and black is to the left. So we went ahead and got this one heat shrinked and soldered, same with the other side, so that's done. Next we'll just I'm going to look at the instructions and figure out which circuit we need next. We don't need a lot, but we do need a few of them. So let me take a look at that, and I'll get back with you and we'll get it cut and the next one soldered. So I just Googled the wiring harness for this car for the gauges. You can do the same for yours, but it says that the C1, which is actually the right side connector, and then pin 4, which is the top row, fourth one over, should be pink, and that's supposed to do our fuel level. That's the next thing I'm going to hook up. I don't have any pink wire. I do have a little bit of orange wire, so we're going to hook that up and add it to the loom, or to the pile of wires. At this point, it's really not a loom, and we'll go from there. Then I think the next few things we've got is I've got to hook up the dimmer switch. That way when the headlights are pulled on, it'll come on. And then I've got to add the brake light, so if the emergency brake is up, that'll light up. And running out of stuff. I can't remember. There's I think 2 other things. I can't remember what they are, but I'm going to go ahead and hook up the orange wire for our sending unit for the gas tank. And we're getting close to being able to kind of hopefully wrap some of this up and see what it looks like all lit up and most of the gauges at least working. Okay, so this is the C1 plug, and you can notice on the bottom you can just see, I'm not sure if you'll be able to tell, but they're numbered. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 4 is pink, which is that guy right there. I'll go ahead and cut him out and add that orange wire to it, so we'll be able to use that. So I got the orange wire hooked up to the pink one now. It's heat shielded and soldered, of course, so we got a decent length of that. The next one we're going to do is the third one over on this number. I think this is actually the number 2 connector. This is the third pin over, and it's that one right there. It's the illumination circuit. So when you pull the headlight switch out, it will actually dim the Dakota Digital so it's not so bright in your eyes at night. The next thing we're going to do, I think it's that one right there, light green, is the high beam indicator. I'm going to check that with the test light, and if it tests out correct, I'm going to go ahead and hook it up, and I'll probably use some random color for that too, because I'm out of colors, so I'll just have to look and figure it out as I go when I hook it up to the box, but it'll be fine. Alright, so I got the green wire out to a brown wire now, and I have been marking these on the ends, so I remember where what was what. So I'm going to try to clean the mess up. There's quite a bit of wires going now, and if you're going to shorten your wires, you need to know where everything's going to land. So I'm going to shorten some of these, but I'm still going to kind of try to tuck some back. That way, if we've got to pull them out and add on to them later, we can. But first, I think we're going to do this, the main control unit. And there's nothing to it. Just get a little bitty screwdriver to go in there. And it just tells you what you got. So the fuel sending unit, we know what that is. That was our new orange wire, which was pink. Oil sender is already hooked up. That's theirs. Water sender, that's theirs. The adjustment, we're not doing that. The switch 1 and 2, that's that little toggle switch I put in. Speed output we're not doing because we're doing the GPS style unit, which plugs in on this side. Actually, it plugs in right there. And then, so it's pretty simple after that too. We're not doing a warning light. Tack wire comes on this unit is going to come from the Phytech unit since we don't have a distributor. Then accessory power, constant power, ground, we ran those earlier. And like I said, the GPS speed unit plugs in right there, so that's that. The dimmer, that's the one we just did, the green one. We're not running a check engine light because the Phytech is all internal. I'm not running a brake light, which would be like if you pulled the emergency brake up, or if your car has a switch on the master cylinder to show when the brake light fluid's low. We're not doing that. I have no idea what the high plus is, or left or right. We're not doing them. It's not four-wheel drive. This here has to do with the Gear 1. I think has to do with the Dakota Digital if you're using their version of the speed sensor. I'm pretty sure that's what it's for. And weight would be like glow plug, and then cruise control. I'm assuming that's probably just a light that shows that your cruise control's on. So we ain't worried about none of that. with it all tucked up in here really nicely. Hopefully it all still fits. We'll find out in a minute. I've got to hook up this cable and that Cat 5 back there in the back to the main display, and then screw it all in, and then we can turn the system on, and I don't know, prompts will come up. I've never done this before. We'll figure it out as we go. I did end up cutting the connectors off, and I just went ahead and sealed all the wires off with some heat shrink just so it's safe. So yeah, I feel good about it. I'm going to hook the battery back up. I'm going to plug this in and we'll do some testing. Houston, we got a problem. The Cat 5 cable looks to be hitting the back of this plastic back here. So I'm going to pull it back out and see if we can't make some room. There's actually a hole right here where that needs to slip. But really what needs to happen is that module needs to go up higher. This piece of plastic right here, I'd already been eyeballing it and I've been wanting to cut it out. We'll just leave the end, we'll trim that back and see if we can slide this up higher. And if that works and gets that out of the way, that'll free us up some space. I just don't want to do a whole lot of trimming if we don't have to. I wish I had the right tool for the job, but I don't. But I have this tool for the job. Just wish it had a standard square bit or blade on it. I've used this thing many times to cut many things. So yeah, nothing like a good side-to-side saw. Let me get in there and see if I can get it cut. Well, I spent the better part of like 5 minutes trying to figure out how to fit this in there. I turned it to different directions and whatnot. That blade ain't going in there. But it's the end of the day anyways. I need to stop, so I'll stop in the morning, get a blade, we'll cut that out, raise that up, and we should be good to go. Man, this thing, it's so close to being able to test these gauges out. I'm pretty stoked about it, I ain't gonna lie. They've been sitting in a box for so long, I'm just ready to see them in the car. So anyways, I'll catch you in the morning. It's the next day, went and got us a blade. I'm gonna go in here and see if I can cut that out right quick, and we'll see if we can get all this to fit in there. It should go, shouldn't be a problem. Alright, so I ended up trimming the back side of that so it fits, and I had to do the corner too, but all that kind of fits up in there pretty nice now. It got us quite a bit of room down here at the bottom. I'm gonna plug this back in and see if it'll slide in there. I think it will. I don't think that's going to be a problem at all. So we can kind of button that up. I think it'll be just fine. There's not a lot of room for it in there, but I think it'll be enough clearance. We'll see in just a minute. Before I put this in there and test fit it, I'm pretty sure it's going to fit, so we're just going to screw it in if it does. Let's pull this off. Yeah. That's satisfying. Alright, I'm going to put this cover back on it. Screw the corners down so it'll stay. We'll see if we can get it to fit in there. I am very happy with how this turned out. I just absolutely love them. Everything fit in there really good after I trimmed that up, so that should be fine. I'm going to throw the battery terminal back on and clean up my mess. Holy moly. And I'm going to get the car outside and we'll let it warm up. And we've got to set the fuel gauge up, but you do that from that little switch I put in over here, so that should be no big deal. And that's pretty much it. The speedometer, the one I have, I don't believe we have to do anything to set it up. If we do, we'll have to take this apart to do it, but I think it's fine. And if we do have to set it up, we'll have to set it up later because this car's still, you know, not driving. So we'll, or not on the road, not till I fix that clutch slave cylinder. That's the next project. So anyways, this is in. Like I said, I'm gonna hook that up and we'll get it outside and do some testing. So before I start her up, it'll be harder to hear once I do. We're just going to be able to check and see basically for the tack working, the oil pressure, the temp. Hopefully that'll come up, and we'll have to set the fuel gauge. Of course, no mile per hour because we ain't going nowhere, but we'll see how all that does. And hopefully it's no big deal. So I'll also turn the steering wheel so we can see it better. Tach's working. Got like 50 pounds of oil pressure. Hope y'all can see these. The sun outside, it's really hard to tell. Alright, we've been running a minute. Temp gauge is coming up. Fuel pressure still like 45 pounds or more. Tach's working fine. We'll have to set up the clock and stuff, but you actually just turn it to accessory to do all that. So I'm going to cut the car off and we'll see if we can set the rest of this up right quick. Okay, so it's pretty simple to set it up. I'll just flip the switch down here on the 1 and hold it while I turn the ignition on. That'll be tough to do with y'all, so I'm just going to do that right quick and get it in the setup, and we'll go. All right, with it held down, just turn on the key, then release it. It goes into setup. We're not going to do the speedometer since we're not driving it. Set up everything if you need to adjust it or whatever, I guess. And that is set up fuel. And then you select the fuel sender. Then hold it down. And this one is the GM90 because it's the fuel sender from the 02 Camaro pump. And then hold it down again. Done. All right. So we're not going to set anything else up right now. You can set up the time and voltage and all that. And I may mess around with it, but if you're doing that, the best thing you could do is just get the book out, read through it. It'll tell you how to do all of that. Yeah, so I'm good with that. Let's turn it off. And then we should be able to turn it back on and the fuel should go up. Yep, full tank. That it is full. I already know that, so we should be good. I'm calling this a success. I needed an easy win, and this one's been fairly easy, so I'm going to pull her back inside, and that's pretty much it. If I can get it in first gear and start it, I can ease it in, but we'll get on that transmission next video. Let's see if we can get this thing to start and go inside for y'all one more time. That's pretty much it. That clutch is basically not disengaging at all now, so that's awful. But we'll get into that next video. But yeah, there we have it. Y'all want to see it all lit up? There's what she looks like lit up. I realized I hadn't shown that yet. Man, she is pretty. No doubt about that. Well, as you saw, the Dakota Digital is beautiful. It works. Everything works just fine. We'll have to figure out the speedometer stuff when we get to it, but that's no big deal. But fuel pressure, fuel level, and the temp and oil pressure and all that works. This thing will give a volt readout as well. You can set that up. I didn't, but it just shows up in the digital display. I'm going to leave our odometer at 0 because this is a fresh build for me. That way I know how many miles I've put on it. Nobody's going to look at this car and think, oh yeah, it's a 0-mile car. Nobody. So with that being said, that's going to wrap up all the Dakota Digital stuff. If you have any questions, I'm sorry I probably can't answer them. I don't know. But the book has almost everything you need in there. I know my system is going to be far different than most people's, but just because of all the stuff that I'd already done a lot of it, and what I hadn't already done was probably different from a lot of people, since I already had the LS, I already had the oil pressure switch and temp switch already in it. So don't be afraid to tackle it, though, with that being said, and don't be afraid to spend the money on it. It's not cheap, but man, is it nice. So with that being said, I appreciate y'all watching. If you're not subscribed, I'd appreciate it if you consider subscribing. Doesn't cost anything. And I'll catch you on the next video.